In my previous life, after Ethan Lewis died, I stayed in the Lewis family for 30 full years, serving my in-laws, working tirelessly, and growing old alone. When I saw him again, he returned with his childhood sweetheart and grandson, coming back to the Lewis family to reclaim his ancestral status. Only then did I finally understand that my entire life had been played in the palms of the Lewis family. My 30 years of loyalty had become nothing but a joke. When I learned the truth in the end, rage overwhelmed me. I collapsed to the ground and never woke up again. In a daze, I saw the kerosene lamp beside the table tip over, and a wave of blazing red swallowed my vision. The Lewis family, which had trapped me for a lifetime, was consumed by a sea of flames in an instant. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day I received the news of my husband's death. Also the day I received my admission letter from the National Medical University in the capital. Ethan and I came from completely different worlds. I was the daughter of a disgraced capitalist family sent to the countryside for reform, and he was a retired soldier who had been on the battlefield. When a village bully tried to harass me, he stepped in to protect me using his status. He didn't mind that my background might implicate him, and I didn't care that he suffered from a hidden illness. Desperate to escape my situation, I married into the Lewis family quickly. I never imagined that from then on, I would fall into the carefully woven trap of the Lewis family and begin a tragic life. Your Ethan's in trouble. The ship he took going south overturned. He didn't survive. The village chief arrived in a hurry with a post office worker who brought the message. The moment my mother-in-law, Linda, heard those words, she wailed and cursed exactly as she had in my previous life. "Oh heavens, my only son is gone. How am I supposed to live now?" she cried, then jabbed her finger at me. "Grace, you cursed jinx. You pushed my son to go south, and now you made him die in a foreign place. You should have died with him." Seeing the spectacle, the post office worker quickly handed me the death certificate and practically fled, as though something terrifying was chasing him. The village chief gave me a long look, then reached down to pull Linda up from where she was dramatically rolling on the ground. With a heavy sigh, he said, "Grace, my condolences. Life still has to go on." Though his expression seemed solemn, a calculating glint flashed in his eyes. "Listen, daughter-in-law of the Lewis family," he continued, "I heard you received your admission letter from the National Medical University in the capital early this morning. Normally that would be great news, but now that Ethan is gone, if you leave home to study, you'll be abandoning Linda and old Mr. Lewis, who's paralyzed in bed. Isn't that basically forcing them to die?" Hearing the exact same moral coercion I suffered in my previous life, I couldn't help but let out a cold, mocking smile. Linda caught sight of it and snapped viciously. "She wouldn't dare. She caused my son's death, so she must stay in the Lewis family and atone for it. She'll take care of us, honor Ethan on his behalf, and stay right here. Grace Lewis, you'd better give up those ridiculous dreams. You're not going anywhere. Your husband died, and you don't even shed a tear. How unfortunate my son was to marry such a heartless woman." Then Linda looked toward the village chief, her tone suddenly shifting. "Brother Lee, now that Ethan, the pillar of this family, is gone, we'll have to rely on you to look after Grace. That admission spot shouldn't be wasted. Why don't you let your granddaughter Lily take her place and go to school instead?" The village chief couldn't hide the delight on his face. "Then I'll thank you on behalf of Lily. Don't worry. From now on, the Lewis family's matters are the Lee family's matters." "Oomph," Linda scoffed. "We'll practically be one family soon. Of course, the Lewis family's matters will be the Lee family's matters." I watched their clumsy performance with complete calm. If I hadn't returned to this day with the memories of my previous life, I would have been deceived by every single one of them again. Just like before. Feeling guilty and ashamed, I ended up giving away my chance to attend college and willingly stayed in the Lewis family to atone. In my previous life, I was so drowned in the grief of Ethan's death that I didn't pay attention to the expressions and intentions of the people around me, and that was why I failed to see their schemes. I fell straight into the trap they had carefully set for me. But heaven had eyes and granted me another chance, this time letting me witness clearly how they tried to lure me step by step. Unfortunately for them, they were bound to be disappointed now. I watched as Linda, just like in my previous life, took out my college admission letter. The moment she tried to hand it to the village chief, I moved faster and snatched the envelope from her hand. I threw it directly into the stove I had prepared in the yard. The envelope caught the flames instantly, burning to ashes, and so did their dream of having Lily take my place and attend college. While they were still frozen in shock, unable to react, I pretended to cry in heartbreak and ran out of the Lewis family home, running far away down the road. Only then did I hear Linda's shrill cry behind me. "What a disaster! What are we going to do now, Brother Lee?" I let out a quiet, cold laugh in my heart. The real show was only beginning. There was no need to rush. These people's so-called blessings were all waiting ahead of them. Without wasting another thought, I quickened my pace and ran to the township government office. Holding Ethan's death certificate, I requested to dissolve the marriage. The clerk looked at me impatiently, as if she found it disgraceful that a woman whose husband had just died was so eager to cut ties with his family. But after searching through the records again and again, her expression shifted from annoyance to a stunned kind of disbelief. "Comrade, may I confirm something? Are you sure your name is Grace Sue?" Even though I didn't understand why she asked, I nodded cooperatively. Her doubtful expression instantly softened into sympathy. "Comrade Ethan Lewis is indeed registered as married here, but the spouse recorded is Lily Lee. Also, we have no record of you ever being registered as married." At her words, I froze for a moment. But seeing the sympathy in her eyes, everything became painfully clear in an instant. Still, to avoid any unexpected complications in breaking free from the Lewis family, I double-checked. "Comrade, just to confirm, this is Ethan Lewis from Lee Village in Singlong Township, correct?" The clerk patiently replied, "Yes. According to our files, Ethan Lewis from Lee Village and Lily Lee from the same village registered their marriage on September 5, 1979. That was the day before Ethan and I held our wedding ceremony, so Ethan had been lying to me from the very beginning. No wonder he never allowed me to see the marriage certificate, always saying it was an important document he had to keep himself. He was afraid I would learn the truth and refused to serve the Lewis family so obediently. Thinking of it now, everything suddenly made sense. No wonder in my previous life, Lily appeared before me without a hint of guilt, bringing along her 2 children, and even her grandchildren, and said that ridiculous line, "I was never the other woman." What a joke. 2 lifetimes, and it turns out I had never had anything to do with Ethan Lewis or with the Lewis family, the people who had crushed me my entire life. After thanking the clerk, I turned and left without hesitation. I boarded the return bus and sat quietly, looking at my hands, no longer old and worn, but young and smooth again. And then, at the admission letter from the National Medical University that I had hidden inside my clothes beforehand, I couldn't help but cry and laugh at the same time. The moment I realized I had been reborn, I grabbed the admission letter and went to the village committee to request an introduction letter, waiting only for the death certificate to arrive so I could legally dissolve this disgusting marriage. Then, right in front of the village chief and Linda, I pretended to burn the admission letter, ruining their scheme entirely. Things hadn't gone exactly the way I planned, but the outcome was still good. Now that I had completely escaped the Lewis family, that place that devoured people without spitting out their bones, the feeling of rebirth finally became real. Only now did I finally have the time and the calm to sort out the details, to peel back the layers and uncover the real truth behind this entire scheme. Back in 1979, after I married Ethan Lewis, I finally had the opportunity to take the college entrance exam. I was very grateful to him for that. So in 1980, when the country pushed its reform policies further and Ethan became eager to go out into the world to try his luck, I took out everything I had to support him. At first, Linda cried and screamed, refusing to let Ethan leave home, leaving him helpless and causing him to give up temporarily. His spirit dimmed, but every time he saw others in the village venture out and carve a future for themselves, he couldn't hide his disappointment or unwillingness. I noticed everything and secretly worried on his behalf. One day after I finished taking the exam, he came to me in private. "Grace," he said softly, I feel like this is my chance to turn my life around. I want to head south and look for opportunities. Just from that one sentence, I could sense how much this meant to him. I didn't want him to spend his whole life living with regret. So foolishly and wholeheartedly I promised him, "Ethan, go. Do your best. Don't worry about home, I'll take care of everything. Once I receive my admission letter, I'll take my parents with me to the capital." Ethan held my hand tightly. "Grace, thank you for supporting me like this. I won't let you down. I'll work hard to make something of myself, worthy of our future Dr. Grace." That night, under my cover, Ethan packed his belongings and slipped out of the house, leaving behind a letter. I never expected that on the 5th day after he left, I would receive the news of his death. The ship he boarded to head south ran into sudden extreme weather the very next day. Under torrential rain, it was dragged into a violent whirlpool and capsized. No one survived. In my previous life, I didn't know it was all a scheme. I simply thought that my in-laws had always disliked me for encouraging Ethan to leave home. And now, receiving the news of their only son's death, they naturally blamed me and demanded that I atone. My grief and guilt swallowed me whole. I cried uncontrollably and silently endured all their accusations and insults. I let them take my admission letter to the village chief so Lily could replace me and go to college. Afterward, I even wiped my tears, forced myself to stay strong, and took care of Linda and old Mr. Lewis, who were overwhelmed by the tragic news. It felt like from that day on, my world went completely dark and never lit up again. Linda hurled endless accusations at me, saying I had pushed Ethan to go south, causing him to lose his life and leaving no remains to bury, disgracing the Lewis family and severing their bloodline. After hearing it enough times, I gradually believed Ethan's death truly was my fault. I became consumed with guilt, and along with the promise I made to Ethan before he left, I no longer had the courage or will to resist or escape the Lewis family. The worst incident happened when Linda shoved me to the ground in front of the communal hospital bed and forced me to kneel, demanding that I swear I, Grace Shue, will spend the rest of my life honoring Ethan's parents, atoning for my sins, and never leaving the Lewis family. After that, the thought of returning to my real parents completely died inside me. I turned down their requests to take me back to the capital again and again until I broke their hearts entirely. Eventually, they gave up on me, and for decades afterward, we never had any contact. Knowing I had no one backing me and that my own family would no longer support me, my in-laws became even more brazen in controlling and suppressing me. Even on his deathbed, old Mr. Lewis glared at me viciously and spat out his final accusation. "Grace Sue, you killed Ethan. You destroyed the Lewis bloodline." Even if I died, he told me I still had to continue staying in the Lewis family to atone. I wasn't allowed to leave. I had to stay by Linda's side so that when Ethan returned, he wouldn't come home to find no one waiting for him. Back then, I didn't think deeply about what he meant. I simply assumed my father-in-law was talking about Ethan's spirit returning every year on his Memorial Day. For more than 20 years, I shed tears in secret for him, believing all of it. Every day I got up before dawn and worked until late at night, caring for my in-laws with all my heart, sending them off in their final years. Yet none of my sacrifices or efforts ever entered my father-in-law's eyes. Even after he died, he still refused to let me go, forcing me to keep atoning. It wasn't until the late 70s that Linda finally fell ill, and only then did my life feel like it loosened even a little. But even that wasn't much of a blessing. After more than 20 years of exhaustion and suffering, my body had completely broken down, held together by nothing but sheer willpower. Just as I thought I would spend the rest of my life this way, enduring, swallowing everything, and one day being able to face Ethan in the afterlife without guilt. I never expected that in this lifetime, while still alive, I would see the living Ethan again. But when we did meet again, he had returned with his childhood sweetheart and his grandson, coming back to the Lewis family to reclaim his ancestral status. I stared at Ethan, who looked even younger than me, then at the elegant woman beside him, his lovely wife, and the happy child in her arms. Every drop of blood in my body seemed to freeze, my scalp tingled. The contrast between my lonely old age and his perfect, fulfilled life was so sharp it was almost laughably ironic. Then I looked at the woman at his side. My eyes widened in disbelief. It was Lily Lee. She was the same age as me, yet she had aged beautifully. Her hair was styled fashionably, and she wore a fitted red dress that made her look refined and elegant. Compared to her, I was a walking shadow, white-haired, hunched, frail, death lingering over every inch of me. I couldn't help wanting to flee from the overwhelming shame of this scene, but Ethan seemed completely unaware of my reaction. He greeted me warmly and even introduced me to his son and grandson. I forced my stiff lips into the saddest smile of my life. At last, he sensed something was wrong and sent the child away before quietly stepping closer. Lily cast him a reluctant look, but at his gesture, she turned to leave. Before walking off, she threw me an inexplicable sentence. "Grace, I was never the other woman." At the time, I didn't have the strength to understand the meaning behind her words. The years of resentment, betrayal, and unspoken suffering inside me finally snapped the last thread holding me together. My cloudy eyes filled with tears, and with a trembling voice I questioned Ethan. "Since you were alive, why didn't you ever write to me? You knew I was still waiting at home for you. Why did you marry Lily? Do you know how I survived all those years?" Even if he hadn't wanted to come home, even if he married and had children elsewhere, he could have at least sent a letter to let me and his parents know he was alive. I wouldn't have carried the weight of thinking I'd killed him, or that I had destroyed the Lewis family. My entire life wouldn't have been ground into dust by that guilt. Ethan fell silent for a long moment before letting out a heavy sigh. "Grace, the Lewis family did you wrong. But we never had any relationship to begin with. Please don't make things difficult for Lily." I stared at him, eyes wide in disbelief, pinning him with my gaze. I never imagined he would respond with something so shameless, so brazenly cruel. No longer the weak woman I once was, I shot back at him. "What do you mean we never had any relationship?" But as the words left my mouth, he hesitated, his lips pressed together. Under the pressure of my unyielding stare, perhaps unable to keep lying, perhaps his conscience finally stirring, he slowly began to reveal the truth I had never known. Back then, I really did buy a boat ticket, but in the end, I never got on that ship. And then I used the situation to my advantage. After all, my marriage to Lily Lee was fully legal and valid. As for you and me, Grace, just assume that my mother took my death certificate and used it to apply for the marriage dissolution on your behalf, freeing you. From now on, you can go wherever you want. If you want to stay in the Lewis family, Lily and I wouldn't be so heartless. We wouldn't kick you out. When he finished speaking, I couldn't control my body anymore. I started trembling all over. What did he mean by just assume? What did he mean by saying I was free to go wherever I wanted? How did he even have the face to say he wouldn't kick me out? Before I could tear apart all the holes in his story, something far more horrifying surfaced from between his half-truths. My in-laws had known everything. They had known from the beginning. They knew their son was still alive. They knew the Lewis bloodline was secure. And taking advantage of the situation, they quietly obtained proof of marriage dissolution so Ethan could marry Lily and build a perfect life. At the same time, they hid the truth from me, using Ethan's death to crush me, watching me drown in sorrow, guilt, and despair, willingly becoming their servant. They let me break my body for them because it allowed them to enjoy meticulous care for more than 20 years. Ethan could chase his dreams without any worries, and the Lewis family wouldn't miss the chance to fill their house with children. What a perfectly calculated plan. As the realization hit me, my cloudy eyes widened in disbelief, and my voice trembled as I asked, "Didn't you say you were infertile? Where did the son and grandson come from?" Ethan's gaze flickered, and he stayed silent for a long moment. "Just think of it as, Lily cured me. A whole family of liars. They hid everything from me so well." My vision went blood red as I stared at Ethan. "Cured, Ethan? Really? Fine. Let's assume that's true. Then why didn't you come back sooner? Let me guess. You were afraid that without me, your paralyzed father-in-law and your proud, lazy mother-in-law would have no one to look after them, right? You people from the Lewis family are truly heartless. You tricked me so horribly. Aren't you afraid of divine retribution?" Ethan's expression changed over and over, as if I had stabbed right into his guilt. "Grace Shue, strictly speaking, You and I no longer have any relationship, but since you took care of my parents for so many years, I can compensate you. You can continue living in the Lewis family home. I'll send you money every month, but don't ask for anything else." He even gave me a final, pitying glance, like tossing scraps to a stray dog, before telling me to leave. I stood there in a daze for a long time, so long that the sky grew dark. Only then did I force my stiff legs to move and walk into the inner room. Using every bit of strength I had left, I smashed open the chest my in-laws guarded like treasure, never allowing me near. Inside I found money, ration coupons, meat coupons, and, most shockingly, stacks of letters and photographs. The first photos were of Ethan and Lily together, then of the three of them, then four of them. My fingers trembled uncontrollably as I held them. Each photo mocked me, mocked how ridiculous all my sacrifices had been. Then came the letters. I read them one by one, and with every line, my heart grew colder. They had been in frequent contact for years, and I had never noticed a thing. The letters were filled with their schemes and their disdain for me. And the worst part, the part I couldn't forgive, was discovering that Ethan had secretly brought Lily back several times over the years. After seeing that I was taking good care of his parents, he left again without hesitation, returning to his business and his real family. He even went as far as to... All the letters between them had been sent directly to Village Chief Lee's house, and then he would take the chance to bring them over and deliver them to Linda. After finishing the last letter, something inside me snapped. No wonder there were several times when that calculating, harsh mother-in-law of mine suddenly gave me movie tickets, telling me to go into town to relax. I had foolishly assumed it was her conscience finally softening. But it was all arranged ahead of time. They were afraid I might run into Ethan and Lily face to face and expose the truth, ruining their perfect plan and refusing to serve them any longer. Once I understood all of this, the fury and heartbreak overwhelmed me. I collapsed to the floor and never woke up again. I hated them. God, I hated them. I had devoted my entire life to caring for my in-laws, but from beginning to end, all they gave me in return was betrayal. In my final moments, I vaguely saw the kerosene lamp tip over beside the table, flames exploding in front of my eyes, devouring the Lewis family that had trapped me for a lifetime. Good, I thought. Let everything burn to ashes. I jolted awake. The phantom heat of the flames still lingered on my skin, making my breath hitch. The memories of my previous life felt too real, as if I had walked through hell all over again. The road beneath the bus swayed gently, enough to lull anyone to sleep, but my mind only grew clearer and sharper. After thinking deeply, I felt that something was off, something I had overlooked. A sense of unease kept digging into me. I felt the truth was far more brutal than what Ethan had told me in my previous life. Back then, Ethan married me and claimed he had a medical condition. He never touched me, and I never forced the issue. But now, thinking back, what condition? What cure? He had been sleeping with Lily all along. Strictly speaking, Lily was already his wife. Mine was just a fake marriage staged for their convenience. Wait, something flashed through my mind, and I found myself piecing things together. It seemed Ethan only started appearing around me after his father became paralyzed. He helped me again and again, guiding me from the shadows, so that even though I knew he was sick, I still willingly married into the Lewis family to live like a widow. So the marriage had been calculated from the beginning. On one hand, before being sent down to the countryside, I had studied medicine. Whenever any of the educated youths got sick, they always came to me for treatment. And at that time, Ethan's father suddenly became bedridden, paralyzed, seriously ill, in need of long-term care. On the other hand, the college entrance exam had just been reinstated in '77, and I had been desperately looking for textbooks everywhere to prepare for the exam. The college entrance exam was the perfect opportunity for Lily to replace me and attend university. At that time, a group of educated youths lived together. There were no secrets. If someone paid attention, it was easy for Ethan to gather information about me. So I had long been targeted by this group of blood-sucking monsters. Realizing this, a wave of cold sweat washed over me. No wonder Village Chief Lee and my mother-in-law, Linda Lewis, always happened to appear near the educated youth camp. And although Ethan and Lily had grown up as lovers, inseparable since childhood, they suddenly split, not long after Ethan's father became paralyzed. They had already chosen their free live-in caretaker. To reassure Lily, Ethan secretly married her first, registering their marriage legally. And I was the unlucky fool they carefully picked out, waiting only for the right moment. Then, Ethan would fake his death and disappear, letting Lily replace me to attend college, and the two of them would fly off together to start their real life. What an elaborate setup, every step leading into the next, perfectly constructed. And I, so stupid, so pitiful, was used up and discarded, my entire life woven neatly into the Lewis family's calculations so they could prosper while I rotted. The more I recalled the past, the redder my vision became. Compared to Ethan, I hated my in-laws even more. With Ethan's straightforward personality, he could never have devised something so intricate and vicious. Most of these schemes were ideas cooked up by my sly in-laws and village chief Lee. I was actually curious to see how long my bedridden father-in-law could survive under the care of Linda, whose 10 fingers had never touched a single chore in her life. As for Ethan, compared to his cold-hearted betrayal, what I hated more was how deeply I had loved him, so deeply that the Lewis family toyed with me my entire life. But in this lifetime, without me serving at my father-in-law's bedside, without me acting as their unpaid maid, without me nursing my in-laws until their last breath, Ethan would no longer have the peace of mind to pursue his dreams, and Lily would have no chance to attend the National Medical University in the capital, let alone graduate and be assigned to the capital hospital like in my past life, becoming the respected Dr. Lee. She certainly wouldn't have had the chance to return to the village for a grand ceremony that glorified the entire Lee family. With everything reset, I wanted to see how Ethan and Lily could ever live the perfect life they had in my previous lifetime. Children and grandchildren filling their home, their days overflowing with happiness. When I returned to the capital, I threw myself into my parents' arms and cried until I couldn't breathe. When they learned I had been accepted to the National Medical University, and that my entire marriage to Ethan had been a lie from beginning to end, they were both relieved and heartbroken. My father said firmly, "Grace, as long as I'm alive, I promise you this. Ethan Lewis will never have anything go smoothly. I'll make sure the Lewis family never rises again." My mother hugged me tightly and soothed me. "Yes, sweetheart, our family may not be as powerful as before, but a starved camel is still bigger than a horse. We still have our foundation. We won't let you swallow your grievances or let those awful people go unpunished." Hearing their words eased the weight in my chest, but I was still afraid they might act impulsively and harm themselves. I immediately said, "Mom, Dad, I just want you both to be safe. Those people will get the punishment they deserve." How foolish I had been in my past life to choose that hellish Lewis family over my loving parents, letting myself be crushed for decades. Afterward, my parents bought all kinds of supplements to nurse me back to health and carefully helped me prepare for school. My life was truly different now. I had finally returned to the path I was meant to walk. All that remained was to make sure the demons who schemed against me in my previous life went straight to hell to pay for what they'd done. The following year, on the school's orientation day, I happily ran into an old acquaintance, Sam Chin. He was one of the educated youths who went to the countryside with me, but unlike my fate, his husband's family treated him well. Even in my previous life, I had always been envious of him. In this life, just like before, with his in-laws, full support, he managed to get into the capital from Lee Village. "Grace, it really is you," he exclaimed. "You know what? Your husband Ethan isn't dead, but your father-in-law is." Not wanting to have anything to do with the disgusting Lewis family anymore, I simply explained, "Is that so? Well, I thought Ethan truly died back then. And since my in-laws never treated me well, and Ethan and I never registered our marriage, I had nothing to do with the Lewis family." So I went straight back to my parents. Sam picked up on the hidden meaning in my words and scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry, Grace, I didn't know." I smiled and waved it off. "It's fine." Then, pretending to be puzzled, I asked, "When I left the Lewis family, old Mr. Lewis's condition was stabilized. How did he end up dead?" Sam's smile turned mysterious. Your mother-in-law, Linda. Oh wait, Linda Lewis. She's not exactly the responsible type. After you left, she pretty much abandoned him. She'd disappear for an entire day and rarely bothered with his meals or care. In less than half a year, old Mr. Lewis passed away. Sam leaned in close and whispered in my ear. In the end, it was the neighbors who noticed a strange smell, broke open the door to his room, and found him already gone. I heard from Grandma Wang, the woman who helped collect old Mr. Lewis's body, that he was nothing but skin and bones when he died. His whole body was covered in bed sores and rotting flesh. She said she threw up as soon as she stepped out after cleaning him up. After that, the whole village started talking. Everyone said Linda Lewis had abused old Mr. Lewis, and the Lewis family's reputation was completely ruined. That was when Ethan returned to the village, just in time to bury his father in the family grave. You should have seen Ethan's face that day. It was pitch black with anger. They said he and Lily had lost everything in their business down south. They were planning to find a way to make a comeback when they suddenly received the news of old Mr. Lewis's death and rushed back overnight. Hearing this stirred conflicting emotions in me, but I didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy. I knew that without me, old Mr. Lewis wouldn't survive long under Linda's care. But I never expected him to die so quickly and so miserably. Was karma coming a little too fast? At the same time, I couldn't help feeling proud of my father. Clearly, in this life, Ethan would never rise to become the wealthy, influential businessman he had been in my past life. That thought made me want to laugh, though on the surface I put on a sympathetic expression. In that case, he probably suffered horribly under Linda before he died. Maybe passing away was a relief, I murmured. Then I pretended to be curious. Did Ethan ever explain how he came back from the dead? Sam Kin's expression grew strangely amused. He said some kind-hearted person saved him, but he hit his head and lost his memories. He didn't remember where his home was until Lily ran into him in the south and helped him recover his memory. Then she brought him back to the Lewis family. Sam clicked his tongue. Grace, do you really believe coincidences like that happen in this world? Something about it feels off to me. He gave a short laugh, then spoke seriously. Leaving the Lewis family back then was the best decision you ever made. Linda was spreading rumors everywhere after you left. She told everyone you went crazy from the shock of Ethan's death, ran off, and no one knew if you were alive or dead. That way, Ethan could legitimately marry Lily. If I hadn't run into you at school today, I might have actually believed her lies. Seeing me now, healthy and living well, he grinned. I'm really happy for you. I smiled genuinely. Thank you, Sam. I'm grateful too. Breaking free from that parasitic Lewis family, returning to my parents, going to university in the capital, I finally have a new life. Then I took off the latest watch I'd worn on purpose today and fastened it onto Sam's wrist. Don't take it off. I still have several other models. Back at the educated youth camp, you helped me so much. You even shared the books you worked so hard to obtain. Meeting again here at the National Medical University, it's fate. You have to accept this late thank you gift. Sam stared at the watch in disbelief, excitement creeping into his voice. Grace, this watch costs 200 yuan. It's too expensive. And besides, we helped each other back then. What would it make me if I accepted something like this? He immediately tried to take it off. I held his hand firmly. Fine. Your mother-in-law adores you, right? She'll definitely send you wild mountain products every now and then, so you can help me get some from the village to repay the watch. Now you can accept it with a clear conscience. Sam's whole face lit up as he smiled. All right, I'll write to my mother-in-law as soon as I get back and ask her to prepare extra this month. When it arrives, I'll bring it straight to you. With that, everything fell into place, and the weight on my chest finally eased. This watch had always been my planned compensation for Sam, who would help pass messages for me. If he refused to accept it, I'd have felt guilty. But this arrangement made things even easier for me. The next time I saw Ethan was half a month later, at the start of the new school term. Ever since meeting Sam that day, I knew this moment was bound to come sooner or later. I hadn't expected it to come this soon. But unlike my previous life, Ethan showed none of the confidence or prestige he once had when he returned home as a successful man. This time, he looked completely defeated, worn down, and pitiful. He was pushing Linda in a wheelchair. The moment he saw me, his bloodshot eyes lit up with joy. "Grace, it really is you. You actually came to the capital for school. I'm alive. I brought Mom here to find you. I've missed you so much." Before I could react, he took big strides toward me, reaching out as if to pull me into his arms. Disgusted, I stepped back immediately, putting a clear distance between us. He really had the nerve to come find me. Did they feel no shame? After scheming against me so thoroughly, how could they still dare to show up? I steadied my emotions and used the very same words he had once told me in my past life. "Ethan, please keep your distance. Strictly speaking, we have no relationship. You know exactly whose name is written on your marriage certificate." When he heard that, panic flashed visibly across his face. Seeing I had already learned the truth and that my attitude was firm with no room for softness, he became desperate. "Grace, I regret it. Mom and we can't live without you." I let out a cold laugh. "Can't live without me? Or can't live without having a hard-working, obedient, unpaid maid to serve you both? If that's what you're looking for, you're at the wrong door. Go find Lily Lee. Don't tell me you're delusional enough to think I'd go back to the Lewis family to slave away for you again. Aren't you afraid I'd make you both regret it?" At that moment, Linda suddenly shouted from the wheelchair, voice shaking with emotion. "No. Don't go to that whore Lily. Grace, I thought you'd gone mad and died out there somewhere. I was heartbroken for so long. It was Lily who helped find Ethan. I had to repay her kindness. That's why I made the decision to let Ethan marry her." She even forced out 2 fake tears, acting pitiful. Even now, she was still pretending, still performing, thinking I only learned from Sam that they held a wedding ceremony for Ethan and Lily. "Grace, come back. I can't live without you. Lily is a poisonous woman. She can't compare to you at all. These legs," she pushed me, "that's why they broke. As long as you come back and treat my legs, I'll make Ethan divorce Lily, that useless hen who can't lay eggs, and you two can remarry. Then we can live together in the capital as one happy family. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" This family was unbelievable, truly shameless, delusional beyond saving. Seeing I remained unmoved, Ethan tried to continue persuading me at Linda's urging. But before he could speak, a woman suddenly lunged out from the side. Her voice was raw with hatred, tearing through the air. "Ethan, you ungrateful, pathetic mama's boy. I knew you still couldn't let go of this woman. It was Lily. You tricked me into marrying you with that college lie. You expected me to serve your family like a servant. Why did you change the moment we returned to the Lewis house? Even after he killed our child, you still stood by your mother's side. When she told you to hit me, you hit me. When she told you to abandon me, you abandoned me and ran back here to chase Grace." She was crying as she screamed, but her hands didn't stop. With each accusation, she stabbed him, hard, again and again. Her movements were swift, almost practiced. Ethan couldn't react at all. Unable to dodge, he was stabbed more than 10 times in rapid succession, collapsing in a pool of blood. I stood there, watching coldly. I had thought they might at least spend a few blissful years together in this life. I never expected them to turn on each other this quickly. It was almost laughable. On the wheelchair, Linda Lewis, seeing Ethan collapse to the ground, his face drained of all color, Linda went hysterical. She tried to push her wheelchair frantically toward me, reaching out as if begging me for help. But I was just a young, physically weak student. How could I step in and intercept a blade with my bare hands for the very people who schemed against me for an entire lifetime in my past life? All I could give them was a look of helpless refusal before stepping far, far away. In my previous life, he had committed countless wrongs, lying, deceiving, manipulating, reducing me to a hollow shell. Now it was finally his turn to experience firsthand the methods of the daughter-in-law he admired so much in our past life. The next moment, the quiet street erupted with Linda's shrill, agonized scream. "Linda Lewis, you old witch! You dare call me a poisonous woman? Compared to you, I'm nothing. Why don't you tell them how you shoved me before? How you caused me to miscarry my 8-month-old child? How you refused to take me to the clinic, nearly letting me die? Thanks to you, I can never have children again. Are you satisfied? And now you want to throw me away? Dream on. Just die and go bury yourselves with my child." With that, Lily stabbed Linda several times in the chest with rapid, vicious strikes. Each thrust was firm and filled with hatred. And as if still not satisfied, she plunged the blade into Linda's abdomen several more times. So in my past life, Lily had already been pregnant at this point, but that child was gone now. And I, who had swallowed every grievance, serving Linda like a loyal servant, had ended up caring for the very woman who was impossible to tame. Her precious eldest grandson was killed by her own hands. Truly, heaven's justice never fails. What goes around comes around. I was lost in the flood of my memories when Lily suddenly turned, brandishing the bloodied knife, and charged straight at me. But the commotion had already drawn the attention of campus security. They rushed over in time, subduing her on the spot. Even after they wrestled the knife from her and pinned her to the ground, she kept screaming, unwilling to stop. "Grace, why? You clearly burned your admission letter. Why are you still here? That spot was supposed to be mine. You burned my admission letter, you filthy woman." Ignoring her madness, I walked straight up to her. She was covered in blood, hair disheveled, looking utterly miserable, nothing like the elegant, dignified woman she had portrayed in my previous life. I looked down at her and said, "Your father, the village chief, wanted you to take my place in college. So I put on a little performance, burned an empty envelope right in front of him. That way he'd give up trying to use me again. And he actually believed it. Isn't that ridiculous?" When I finished speaking, I no longer bothered wasting breath on her. Seeing she was about to hurl more insults, the security guard stuffed his freshly removed sock into her mouth. I couldn't help smiling at the sight of Lily glaring at me with pure hatred. In my past life, after Ethan became paralyzed, her father, the village chief, had refused to let his daughter suffer as a daughter-in-law of the Lewis family. Yet he still conspired with them to ruin my entire life, paving the way for his daughter's bright future. He was hardly innocent. From the moment Ethan and Linda appeared, I had already noticed Lily hiding in the distance. I purposely said those things to make sure she saw the Lewis family's true colors, so she would tear them apart from the inside. But I hadn't expected the Lewis family to already be riddled with wounds of their own making. Lily had just lost her child because of Linda. She had also lost the ability to ever be a mother again. Her heart was already shattered. And then Sam had asked his mother-in-law to send extra mountain goods, which indirectly revealed that I was studying at the National Medical University in the capital and living a wealthy, enviable life. Upon hearing that, Lily must have felt a crushing sense of contrast, believing the Lewis family had lied to her, used her, and ruined her life. She must have thought they had cheated her out of everything she deserved. And as for Linda, once she learned the truth and compared everything side by side, Linda would surely become even more resentful toward Lily, and the two of them would only grow more incompatible as time went on. With Lily's selfish and self-centered nature, she would never let such a perfect opportunity slip by. She would drag Ethan along to beg me to take him back, abandoning Lily, who was now worthless to her and whom she already despised. And as for Ethan, the ever-filial son, he would never dare go against Linda's will. Of course, he would secretly bring her along and come find me. Every one of their actions only deepened Lily's hatred toward this cold, ungrateful mother and son pair. All they needed was one final push from me at the crucial moment. Of course, Lily did not disappoint me. She went far beyond what I had expected. She was vicious, decisive, and ruthless. From the looks of it, Ethan and Lily had never truly loved each other. The Lewis family was still calculating everything down to the last detail, desperately trying to manipulate everyone like pieces on a chessboard. But too bad. This lifetime, I had reclaimed everything that once belonged to me, and Lily had swapped roles with me from my past life. Lily was not someone who would swallow her grievances, and I was no longer the timid, naive woman who could be softened by a few manipulative words from the Lewis family. The tragic ending of Ethan and Linda had already been sealed long before this day came. In the end, Ethan and Linda died on the spot, completely and utterly dead. The Lewis family truly met the fate they had once cursed me with, dying away from home, with their bloodline completely severed. At the police station, Lily confessed everything during interrogation. When I later heard the truth from the officers, truth that aligned almost perfectly with my own deductions. I felt no sadness. I still had one last important task to complete. I sent a full report, along with the evidence provided by the Capitol Police Department, to the township government of Lee Village, the nightmare I once lived in. After that, I pushed those demons out of my mind entirely and focused on my studies. During this time, I earned outstanding grades and was awarded a government-sponsored position as an international exchange student. On the day I left for England, my parents hugged me tightly, reluctant to let go. Silently, I made a promise to myself. I would never disappoint the people who loved me and believed in me. I would return home successful. With that goal in mind, I devoted myself to my coursework abroad. I studied tirelessly, absorbing cutting-edge medical knowledge and techniques, determined not to waste even a single minute. I wanted to return and contribute to my country as soon as possible. 5 years later, I rejected my mentor's attempts to keep me there and decisively boarded the plane back home. Upon my return, not only was I recommended as a specialist talent to the Capitol Hospital as a department director, but I also became the youngest professor the hospital had ever hired. I lived up to my director's expectations. Within just 3 years, through the connections I had built in England, I helped the hospital acquire many advanced and precise medical instruments, saving countless lives. During this time, I also trained batch after batch of exceptional medical students, teaching them everything I had learned abroad, thoroughly, seriously, and without holding anything back. The next time I saw Sam Chin was when I was invited to Lynn's Medical Center to participate in the treatment of a rare case. By then, he had already become an excellent surgeon. After 2 weeks of consultations, discussions, and confirming every detail with the patient's family, we finally finalized the treatment plan and the surgery date. When the surgery was successfully completed, every doctor involved breathed a temporary sigh of relief. For once, I felt relaxed enough to go to the hospital cafeteria to eat, instead of asking my assistant to bring food to my office. At the cafeteria, Sam spotted me and immediately sat beside me with a bright smile. "Grace, I honestly didn't expect that the expert our hospital spent so much money inviting would turn out to be you. You're incredible, and after assisting through the entire surgery, I admire you even more now." I smiled back at him. "You're amazing too. The moment I arrived, your director wouldn't stop praising you. You were my assistant for this surgery, and you didn't disappoint him at all. You coordinated perfectly and helped me save a lot of precious time for the patient." Sam chuckled shyly, then excitedly pulled me into a long conversation about his past few years of work, especially the rare cases he had encountered and treated. Every time I brought up one of my own cases, the hunger for knowledge in his eyes deeply moved me. It reminded me of myself during my years studying abroad. I tapped a finger lightly against his forehead since he kept leaning closer and closer. "On the 8th of next month, I'll be hosting a medical seminar at the National Medical University. So Dr. Chin, I'm officially inviting you. Any interest?" Sam practically threw himself into my arms, hugging me tightly. "Interested? Absolutely. I'll go talk to the director as soon as I get back and have him keep those 2 days free for me." Realizing what he had just done, he pulled back quickly, then started chatting excitedly about gossip. "Grace, you weren't abroad for long before Lily's case was closed. She killed 2 people, so she was sentenced to death." I let out a quiet, Hearing old events again so many years later barely stirred any emotion in me. It was exactly the ending I had expected. Seeing my lack of interest, Sam quickly switched topics. "Do you remember Lily's father, the village chief?" I nodded. Sam's eyes lit up again. "Well, someone reported him. The evidence was mailed straight to the township office. He was taken away that same day, stripped of his position immediately, and sent for labor reform. A few days after Lily's execution, he escaped when no one was looking and threw himself into the river. By the time they found him, he was so swollen they couldn't even recognize him. It was awful. His wife fainted instantly when she saw the body." Hearing Sam describe the outcome, a faint ripple stirred in my heart. All of this was nothing more than the consequences of their own cruelty. The sins they committed had finally caught up to them. The resentment of my past life was completely resolved. I felt the exhaustion of years lift from my body, leaving only lightness and ease. Everyone has their fate. If you do wrong, you will pay eventually. Are you free tonight? I asked. Let me take you to the state-run restaurant for a proper meal. We should celebrate our first successful surgery together, and celebrate meeting again after all these years. Sam beamed. Of course. Can I bring my family? My kid is adorable. You'll love him. I stood up and nodded with a smile. Sure, and tell your little one that Auntie Grace is looking forward to meeting him for the first time. I've even prepared a gift. Hearing Sam burst into muffled laughter behind me, I walked out of the cafeteria and stepped into the bright, welcoming sunlight of a brand new day. In the years that followed, my life settled into a quiet, steady rhythm. I poured myself into my work, treated every patient with the same compassion I once wished someone had shown me, and guided every young doctor with the patience I had learned the hard way. My days were full of purpose, of people, of healing, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I truly felt alive. Sometimes when I walked through the hospital corridor in my white coat, I would catch my reflection in the glass. I no longer saw the timid girl who had once been trapped in the Lewis family's web. Instead, I saw a woman shaped by sorrow, but not defined by it. A woman who had clawed her way out of hell and built herself a new heaven. My parents grew older, but with every holiday I spent with them, every meal shared, every moment of laughter filling our home, I felt a gratitude so deep it humbled me. I safeguarded them with all the strength I had left. They were my anchor in my darkest life, and in this one, I finally became theirs. As for the Lewis family, they became nothing more than distant shadows, names on old documents, whispers from a life that no longer belonged to me. Their fate had played out exactly as it should have. Justice does not always come swiftly, but it always comes. One spring evening, after finishing my shift, I stood on the hospital rooftop and watched the sun dip behind the skyline of the Capitol. The golden light spilled across the city like a promise, warm, steady, full of hope. I closed my eyes and breathed in deeply. This life was mine. No chains, no debts, no ghosts of the past tugging at my heels. Just the path I chose, the future I built, and the peace I earned. For the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was truly, completely living. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all.